This week on Talking Royals, the impact of King Charles speaking out on his cancer treatment.
I totally feel he was connected, knowing what we felt losing our daughter.
What Chris and Lizzie found out when they joined William and Kate on the Isle of Mull.
They were both having a go with the nail gun. And at that point, the Princess of Wales revealed that at one time she received a chainsaw for Christmas.
And Meghan gives her first podcast interview.
Here's everything and every moment that I wanted to tell you how much I love you and like how proud I am of you. And of all things, it's making me emotional.
I'm not sure if I was a sort of 16 or 18-year-old, I'd want 6,500 emails to read.
Hello and welcome to Talking Royals. I'm Charlene White and we are back after a couple of weeks off for Easter, aren't we? Chris is with me.
Well, I'm actually
Liz
just posting on Instagram that we're recording again after Easter. And you're kind of, do you want to talk to Lizzie while I just finish the post?
I mean, honestly, goodness me.
What's your name
Sometimes I do wonder why we have Chris with us
White.
to do this.
Do I follow you? I follow you.
You
That's
do
good.
follow me. Good.
I'm going to... Okay, carry on.
Thank you very much.
Right.
And if you do want to follow us...
Charlene is the host.
We are there, of course, with loads of royal content. You were in Italy last time.
We were in
Italy.
Italy.
And I was at home.
We were.
So how was your Easter?
It was lovely. Yeah, it was lovely. But nice to be reunited. Loads to catch up on this week.
Yes.
It's been busy. But how are you?
I'm all right. I was at the Palace.
Oh.
I went to Dubai for my sister's 40th and then came
You were at
back.
the Palace and we weren't.
Yes, sometimes, Chris, it's just about who you know. My friend Ava Omagami, who I know that you guys know, she's long-standing senior aide to the King and has left to launch her own company. Having worked
That's a big loss for the King.
Some of the most incredible and innovative...
that one.
That one. Innovative.
Really innovative
ideas regarding the King. A lot of them have come from Ava.
Yeah.
But I imagine
Wasn't
she will...
The music list.
His Apple podcast.
She'll retain...
Well, yeah, so she's got
link,
this,
yeah?
I think it's Forster Jones and Associates or something. So she's launching her own thing. So she will still be advising because I think, she was their most senior black aide that they had. Brilliant woman, absolutely brilliant woman. And I was basically it's this weirdest thing, went in through the side entrance to Buckingham Palace. Not through the front, side entrance on Buckingham Gate.
I hate going through there.
And
you have to go through there, then you have to go up to that desk when they all say...
No.
No?
Oh,
were you just escorted through?
Escorted through.
In a horse and carriage.
And we were escorted through and basically we got like a behind the scenes tour because they're having renovations done at the moment.
Yeah.
So we walked past all the skips and everything and the floor's covered in like plastic coverings and whatever. So we literally went through, I guess, what would have been back in the day, the servants' entrance.
Yeah, that's kind of the way
where they take us in.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this, we've both been doing this job for 8 years or something. And every time we go in, it's like you've never been in before and they can't find your name on the list and you've got to show them the passport. And then you go through.
They can't just have anyone wandering in. They need to check we're all right.
Who we are in their system.
It was incredible, but we sort of had it in what is one of the main areas of the palace, and it's a lovely, just a really.
Was this last night?
It
the
was
same time
it was Tuesday this week.
Oh, Tuesday this week.
So
right.
we just.
Because last time I looked on Instagram, you were in Dubai.
Yeah, I haven't posted up the picture yet of Ava and I.
Right, okay.
I didn't want to make you feel a bit gel.
Well,
getting these sort
she
of
didn't
private
invite us,
invitations.
but I think there has to be a professional sort of.
Do you know what? I was texting her and I said, "Can I mention it today?" And she said, "Yeah, it's fine." I said, "But not sure. Obviously, Chris Ship didn't get an invite." I said, "Yeah, but Chris Ship needs to understand the levels at which I do my job."
We could have brought Ava in.
There needs to be a delineation between those who cover the royal family impartially and those who just go into Buckingham Palace for a party.
Well, it was
that delineation is here somewhere.
It was a drinks reception, actually. I did say to Ava, the one thing that was missing was like Idris DJing or something would have been great.
That would have been fabulous.
She's not sure how well that would have gone down, but I said I would have backed her on that one.
Yeah.
Quite.
Now, talking to the King, actually.
And receptions.
And music, because there was a choir there.
So he was there. He had a big reception last night for those who are currently going through their own cancer diagnosis or journey,
or
who have
fighting
had,
cancer research,
or who have family members. He hosted them last night.
He did. There was a big reception at Buckingham Palace, as you say, for all those types of guests, but also organisations, cancer organisations that do incredible work, many of which the King is patron of and has had a long-standing involvement with. But as part of this reception, there was a booklet, and in that booklet was a written message from the King, which was sort of billed as his sort of most personal reflections on his own cancer journey. We didn't find out, any more in terms of what cancer the King has or what treatment he's having, but he was talking a little bit about the experience for individuals that are diagnosed, but also their loved ones, calling it the most, it is a daunting and at times frightening experience for those people. Throughout this journey he's done a lot to use his position where possible to raise awareness, to try and offer people hope, and to open up conversations around this. And there is a very specific reason, actually, that we don't know what kind of cancer the King has. That has been a very deliberate decision, and that is that they don't want to make people feel that he's only talking to a very sort of small section of people. He wants to raise as much awareness as possible and have that conversation as with a wider audience as possible.
Do you know what? I one thing I think I've learned since doing this podcast with you two and sort of conversations with Ava about various.
Glad it's a learning experience.
No, it's that I do genuinely believe that a lot of things that he talks about really does come from the heart. It doesn't necessarily come from people telling him what to say or writing these things on his behalf. A lot of this really does come from the heart with him. And, when Ava was giving his speech, it was the moment at which she mentioned him that she started welling up and she was getting quite emotional because she just was talking about how incredible he is and just that not everyone understands just what an incredible person he is and how much control he has in terms of what he chooses to do and what he thinks are the right thing to do. And so with a decision like this, not making it about himself, it will be something that comes from him as opposed.
It's all about using his position. How can I best use the position that I have to help and to shine a spotlight and to help raise awareness and to help other people? I think that's what he does incredibly well, and I think it's what they all try and do as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think he does it particularly well. And as you say, about that sort of range of topics that he's got this deep sort of understanding of. And obviously cancer is something that's now affected him personally. But, I was cycling back from the palace last night and I rode past the Royal Academy of Arts, which is something that he's very deeply involved in. I was kind of then already thinking, just as you were saying, he understands all about that arts and then traditional crafts, and then there's the environmental message, and then there's sort of architecture, and then there's now cancer. And I mean, there's a lot of subjects that he does have a very deep knowledge and understanding of. And, that is something, because we've got a king now who is the sort of longest serving Prince of Wales ever. A lot of people said at the time he's the best trained king or best trained new king we've ever had. And I think, we're looking into the distant future. I mean, William does have a lot of learning to do in order to have that same level of understanding as his father. And
Deborah James's parents were there last night as well. And I did a bit of work with Debs when it came to campaigning for more knowledge about bowel cancer. And what was it like seeing? I mean, I love her mum and dad. I just think
they're great, aren't they?
They are just a really, really wonderful couple.
We met them after the reception. We'd just been speaking about this message that the King issued yesterday, and his final words in this message was quoting Deborah James. And Mum and Dad, Heather and Alistair, told me yesterday they didn't know that. No one had mentioned it to them. And so when they saw it in the booklet, I think someone might have told them as they went in, by the way, have a look at the last paragraph. And that was the King saying, look, Deborah James's parents, I'm delighted they're here with us this evening. And she was an inspiration. And this is the quote he used: "Find a life worth enjoying, take risks, love deeply, have no regrets." And this is the one that everyone remembers: always, always have rebellious hope.
And I love her dad, Alistair, had on his socks rebellious hope. that motto on there.
I get goosebumps anytime that quote.
And the king,
That's
the king
amazing.
had a really warm conversation
Yeah.
with them, clasping. Heather was sort of clasping his hand, and
He was so appreciative of what he's doing
Yeah.
for cancer. So have a listen to a bit of the conversation that I had with them afterwards, just about meeting the king, thanking one another, but also their reaction to this quote that the king used in this message.
Yeah.
We didn't know until we actually got into the palace that was going to appear, and I think just before we arrived I went, wow, that is amazing.
And it brought us back to us when those words were written, because those were written in our house in her last few days with the family around her. So for us it was quite an important emotional moment, remembering what she wanted to be her last statement, and now to be repeated in that way. What better mark could she have?
I totally feel he was connected, knowing what we felt losing our daughter, but also how important it was to spread the word of cancer and making it, it is open to everybody to touch.
I would think they've always been patrons of the cancer community.
Yes.
I'd say the king now understands the cancer community, and is part of it.
And actually, they were so in demand last night. So many people wanted to speak to them that Heather missed the change and check choir. So I had to send her last night a little bit of video off our screen to say, oh, by the way, this is what they sounded like, because that was something that you were
Royal
involved in.
Variety show. I performed with them with Marty Peller and the whole choir.
As you do.
As you do. And every person that's involved in that choir got themselves checked as a result.
There
I am.
Yep.
Got themselves checked as a result of seeing a special that Lorraine did on her show about how to spot the signs.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, they started looking at their own bodies a little bit more in depth, and then went and got checked out, and then realised that they had cancer.
Another person, we should say, was the Duchess of York, Fergie herself. As we know, in the last couple of years, she's had skin and breast cancer, and quite a sort of compassionate way of including her in, because obviously the Yorks are frozen out, or particularly Andrew, but they thought it was right that she should be there.
Kate and William obviously weren't there, but they've been doing their own thing in Scotland, haven't they?
They have. They've been on a 2-day visit to the Inner Hebrides. So they've been to the Isles of Mull and Iona. And this is a first official visit for them, although we did find out that they have been to the Isle of Mull before. They went, I think, just after their exams as students when they were finishing up at University of St Andrews.
Island.
It is so beautiful, isn't it? It was a first
And we had
time
good weather
for me
as well.
there.
All the locals who I had to learn how to pronounce this. They're called Mullachs.
Mullachs.
People from Mull.
Okay.
And actually, I had to do a little chat with STV, Scottish TV, when I was there, and I had to say Mullachs, and someone who speaks the language says, yeah, it was quite close.
Oh, wow.
So-
Okay, apologies to anyone who's from the Isle of Mull for all of our pronunciations.
Yes, quite.
today.
Beautiful, and lovely weather. And they're all joking with us, it's all like this every day. Which
So
clearly
it's
not.
size, tiny?
Tiny. So the Isle of Mull has a population of about 3,000.
Oh, wow.
Iona, 170. So really tiny.
And you can't take your car on Iona unless you live there, because it's that small. So.
And so the point of the visit was all about sort of celebrating and connecting with rural island communities who live obviously a different way of life, because they're dependent a lot on ferries between the islands and the mainland, but also a sort of a much more connected life with the sea and nature. And they were also there sort of highlighting nature. They've done a lot, or William particularly has done a lot around championing, protecting the natural environment.
And so what was it like sort of being there and watching them do their thing?
You know what?
And was the whole island there too?
It kind of felt like it was. Yeah, there were a lot of tourists on the island as well. And they were saying, what, William and Kate coming here? Oh, funny enough, they even bumped into, on Iona, Ruby Wax. It wasn't meant. She wasn't meant to be there, but they got there and she was there. There's a photo that her
She
team
says she was there
shared
on
with
a
us.
silent retreat.
I mean,
She does do silent
And
retreats
bumped
quite
into
a
them.
lot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
Where can
so
I sign
random.
up for a silent retreat? I quite fancy it. So yeah. Anyway, so they weren't meant to meet her, but it was a bit like when Paul Gascoigne rocked up in a pret-a-manger in Bournemouth when William was doing one of his homeless events. Just suddenly happened to be there. Anyhow, they looked really well. Kate looked really well. I mean, a lot of people are saying this is the longest they've been, or furthest they've travelled since her return to work from her cancer.
On official duties.
On official duties. They also stayed overnight there for their wedding anniversary, and then did a set of events the next day. I mean, look, we should point out Kate and William have had, travelled further for holiday, for their
personal
own time.
holidays.
They've been on 2 skiing trips, and they've also been to the Caribbean as well. But nevertheless, it's a sign of their increasing confidence in Kate's ability to resume her engagements.
So they started their first engagement was at a community hall, and these community halls are really important spaces for the community to gather. And there they showed off their DIY skills. They had a nail gun, and they were helping to build the roof of a community fridge. So they were both having a go with the nail gun. And at that point, the Princess of Wales revealed that at one time she received a chainsaw for Christmas. And I heard her say this, and I looked to her head of communications, and I just looked at him, and he went, "Yeah, no, she did just say that."
Yes,
a chainsaw.
And when I asked later for some, because we used the clip of Kate saying, "Oh, I had a chainsaw for Christmas," I said, "How what was the context of this?"
Yeah.
He said, "Absolutely no idea. I presume it's something to do with gardening." So at least we now know that the future
And who got it
owns a
for
chainsaw.
her?
Yeah.
How did they wrap it? How did she feel?
Yeah, I mean, she looked very
questions,
competent
yes.
with the nail gun. She's obviously done a bit of DIY before. In fact, I heard someone say to William, "Is there anything she can't do?" And he said, basically, no.
It's a bit like that time we had the questions that when Harry was talking to James Corden on top of a bus, I seem to remember, and Harry revealed that the late Queen, Elizabeth, bought Archie a waffle maker. And he was saying, well, what does she do? Does she just pop into Argos and to buy? And how does the Queen buy Archie a waffle maker?
Amazon account, obviously.
Well, yeah, clearly.
Other things we learnt. I love these tidbits you pick up when you're sort of following them around and they're having chats with different people.
Yeah.
Chainsaw's one. They're good at, she's particularly good at DIY. The other thing we learned is that when they were there previously, privately, she bought a couple or some watercolour paintings, and those now hang in the bedroom.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and she said she loves collecting things and memories from places that she's been.
Do we know the artist? She didn't reveal anything about that. Oh, can you imagine?
Conversation.
Like an artist that's got no idea that the paintings and what have you in it now hangs in their room.
I'm not sure if it's theirs. She just said in the bedroom. But and also she had a very long. They went to this artisan market. She had a long conversation with a beekeeper there. We know that she keeps bees and is passionate about that. But they had to. She was asking lots and lots of questions.
Meghan,
and she said, "Oh, that's
them.
my summer project." She was looking at these amazing, intricate candles that had been made from. She said, "Oh, that's my summer."
Doing a bit of candle making. Is she?
Seems to be that's what she's up to next.
Chainsaws,
candle
making. More hours in my day.
Yes, quite. Again, wasn't that in Meghan's Netflix series? She went and collected some beeswax and made candles.
She did.
Maybe they secretly talk.
Maybe
they have. Maybe the brothers have issues.
Yeah, but the two of
their
them
wives
are
like besties on their WhatsApp.
How are your bees? And what did the candle turn out like?
That's what I like to think. That's why we're going to talk a bit more about Meghan in just a bit. We're going to go to the archive part of the show, and we're flying you way back to April 1975.
Were you alive?
No, clearly I wasn't alive in 1975.
I was.
Clearly you were.
Was I the only one in this room alive in 1975?
Yes, you are. When Prince Charles did a tour of Canada and did a variety of very cool things and wore a variety of very interesting outfits.
Well, this one, so if you're watching this with us rather than listening to it, we're currently looking at the Prince, as he was then, dressed in a sort of fur hat. Now, suddenly, he's got this red diving suit on because he decided, and this kind of shows a lot about how he was campaigning for the natural world, even back in 1975. And there we go. He's about to dive under the ice. And this was was now present-day Nunavut, which used to be part of the Northwest Territories. But and there he goes, all the way down and under the ice. So
and he just
pretty adventurous. He was what age was he at the time? 26 years old, I think he was.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Well, actually, and have a listen to this because he's come out. Look at that. He's basically come out looking like Michelin Man because to insulate yourself against the cold, you have to fill it. No, I'll stop talking and just watch what happens here when he deflates the suits that he's wearing. It's quite a funny moment.
Amazing.
I love that. That just shows, we've talked a lot in recent episodes about his sense of humour, and it's brilliant, isn't it?
And
it's very funny.
He talked about, in the lead up to this, his aides were sort of asked things like, obviously, because they have to do a whole safety check. You can't have the Prince Charles, heir to the throne, suddenly get stuck under the ice. They had to do like a whole health and safety thing, the food that he was eating. So I think he also tried local food, local Inuit food. So he had raw seal's liver, and his aides also had to do a whole health and safety check thing to make sure that he wouldn't get sick from that.
Yeah.
But he tasted it and said it tasted absolutely incredible.
And you know, like, the whole First Nations issue is really big in Canada right now, and also in Australia and New Zealand as well. But again, here's a man ahead of his time, going out and sort of like living with or eating Inuit food. And but that First Nations issue is a big deal in Canada, and talked about a lot. So
well, look, we've got Charles obviously spoke to the cameras during his trip. Let's take a listen.
This isn't rain from London. The whole point is one tries to come here to be seen by people, to make them realise that you're there and you take an interest and you're concerned, and you don't just remain in London all the time.
So there you've got, again, it's fascinating going back this to 1975, isn't it? You've got the King talking about this whole thing of why is the head of state of Canada, well, then Queen Elizabeth and now King Charles, why is he also the King of Canada? And we've, you just roll it forward to present day when you've had all of those debates in the election in Canada in the past week or so, all about Trump and standing up to Donald Trump, and yet the King, our King, is potentially going to invite Donald Trump here on a state visit, and yet he's the King of Canada. A lot of issues and political things are coming in there. But talking of the election, now that Mark Carney's won it, largely because of his opposition to Donald Trump, it does mean that the rest of the year is now clear for potentially a visit. I'm not saying he's going to go under the Ice Age, mid-70s, but another visit to Canada.
And the rumours aren't there? There are rumours that he may do something pretty significant whilst he's there.
Yeah, so there's been this big question mark. When will he go to Canada? He goes, he's been very regularly throughout his life. He's got a very, very strong connection with Canada, and he is now the King of Canada. So the question was, when he became king, when would he get to all the realms where he is king? And he's now been to Australia. Canada, we thought it wouldn't happen this year. As Chris said, the election was brought forward, which does now open up a window this year where it could be possible. And it could be possible, and there has been speculation about, could he go for the state opening of Parliament? His mother did it in 1957, so there is a precedent there.
But it does bring up,
it does.
As you say, it's international relations and diplomacy. All of this comes into this now because, of course, as you mentioned, Chris, regarding Trump and Trump, does the King go and do the opening of Parliament in Canada before Trump comes here on the state visit?
It's diplomatically
and also,
very difficult.
We've had Donald, again, we weren't meant to be talking about this according to my list, but we've had Donald Trump talking about his state visit here, calling it a fest, and he's going to come over and it's going to be bigger and better than ever. Well, as we all know, all state visits are the same. You get the same state banquet. It looks pretty grand. It doesn't get grander or less grand.
No.
Although they have to now hold it at Windsor because Buckingham Palace is being refurbed, as we discussed earlier.
Yes, exactly.
So they can't have a state visit there. But so yeah, Donald Trump talking, and we're wondering whether Donald Trump is getting his wires crossed. Not he would, but he could be coming here for an informal visit in September rather than the actual state visit.
Okay.
Maybe open his new golf course in Scotland and pop in and see the King at Balmoral. Which is not, of course, the big state visit, which will happen in Windsor.
Or the fest.
Or the fest.
As it shall now be known.
Yes. He's coming over for a fest.
It'd be really interesting if when we get the press release from the palace about that, whether or not it says fest. It'd be very interesting.
It will be.
Right, let's move on to Meghan now. She's done her first podcast interview on the Jamie Kern-Lima podcast.
Yes.
It's not the first time
it's not Meghan's
they
podcast,
have both featured on a podcast because Jamie has been on Meghan's podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is just Meghan being on Jamie's podcast, I guess, returning.
There's a lot of Meghan at the moment, isn't there? Because we had the As Ever. What's it called, As Ever? No, Love Meghan.
With Love Meghan was the Netflix show. As Ever's the the business.
Detail, you said. Don't do detail. She's had that thing on Netflix.
The Confessions of a Female Founder podcast. We've now had they call it a sort of a rocking chair chat. It's the two of them in their cozies, no makeup on, having a chat. It is, when I sat down to watch it, I was thinking, oh, this will be, half an hour and a half.
I'll just say a lot of the American podcasts are 90 minutes and can go on for like 3 hours.
I was really surprised and I thought, goodness, that is a long chat. Jamie
Should we do an hour and a half today and just ignore what we're being told in our ear by Marcus?
I just don't think that would go down well, but we'd have fun.
We'd have fun.
Do you think Marcus would just walk out after 30 minutes and just leave it to
he'd literally flick the switch.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it would just go black in here.
Please don't.
We'd be lights off, just us sitting in the dark chatting. So Jamie Kern-Lima is an entrepreneur. She sold IT Cosmetics to L'Oreal for £1.2 billion in 2016, so incredibly successful. But the two of them sat down for a long chat. Should we have a listen to what they said?
Yeah, this is Meghan talking about her kids and what she's writing for them. No, and I'm just preparing people for what they're about to hear.
Just take a listen.
Maybe you can't be prepared.
No, let's stop. Let's just take a listen.
At one point in their life, maybe when they're 16 or when they're 18, that I say, here's an email that I've been keeping for you.
I have full body chills right now.
For your whole life. And here's everything and every moment that I wanted to tell you how much I love you and like how proud I am of you. And of all things, it's making me emotional. For them to be able to look back and go, oh my gosh, she has loved us so much.
So Meghan emails.
No, you have to stop.
No, I'm not saying anything. No,
because I'll just say...
I've got full body chills right now, so I'm just going to let you take over.
So Meghan emails her children Archie and Lilibet. I'm just going to plough on. Archie and Lilibet almost every night, she says, as sort of a time capsule for them to be able to read one day when they're sort of 16,
Which is not
18,
unusual.
She says.
Yeah, it's not a new thing. I remember a couple of years ago, that was quite big on Instagram, where there's an app, which as a parent, you can upload a picture a day or email to a separate email account, which your kids will get access to at 18. So send them an email a day, which they can then read. So it's not something new, but it is a very Americanized concept.
I mean, we worked out that would be over 6,500 emails if you did it every day from
I'm
birth
not sure
to 18.
if I was a sort of 16 or 18-year-old, I'd want 6,500 emails to read as a present.
It's not that long. It's not that.
6,500.
Well, it could be
emails.
like 3 lines.
Yeah.
It won't be. No one's got time to write like a manuscript.
Well,
particularly like she's doing one for Archie and one for Lilibet. So there's that's a lot of emails. They're not going to be.
Anyone watching this who's got kids who doesn't even because after their kids go to bed they might be reloading the dishwasher or sorting out the laundry or doing else. I mean, Meghan's sitting there sort of writing emails.
Yes, you do, because it could be very therapeutic, and I think it is quite. I mean, put it this way, if you spend a lot of time on TikTok or Instagram or any of those sorts of things, and depending what your algorithms say, you are interested in, as opposed to, and I'm assuming none of this stuff is on your algorithm, Chris. Like
what gave you that idea?
Oh, I can't imagine what. On my algorithm, I end up getting a lot of sort of family-focused, cute things, parenting stuff to do, and all of those things, which is why I'd heard about the email thing before, which is why I know about the photograph thing. And it was a couple of weeks ago, a dad in Sweden had taken a picture of his daughter every day of her life until she was 18, and then it was almost like sped it up, and it was like a flip book, and the responses that he got were incredible. So in a lot of spheres,
I would get full body chills if someone did.
Oh my God! Do you know what? The next time you're on the old ITV news, in fact, Tom Bradby's News at 10, I want you to include the phrase full body chills in one of your reports.
Okay. Yes, maybe not the next time, just in case the next...
In the next week, on News at 10, you have to use the phrase full body chills.
I think that's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It would be quite easy if we were talking about Meghan's podcast, of course.
No, I don't care what you're talking
if we
about.
were talking about the use of HRH as a title.
Yes.
So
could
now,
probably get it in there.
this is the controversial bit of the podcast that has come out. So Jamie was talking in the podcast about Meghan being a great friend, and she talked about how at one point Meghan dropped off a basket with some ice cream and homemade strawberry sauce for her because Jamie had lots of family over, and Meghan knew that
Did it have flour sprinkles?
No, I don't think so, but it did have a card on the front, and it said, with compliments, HRH, Duchess of Sussex.
Okay, so why is that controversial? Can you guess?
Well, because she's not part of the royal family.
Yes,
but
and in the Sandringham Agreement,
Yes.
which was that big sort of house
she couldn't
exit,
publicly use it. She's like rent it to her mate. It's not. I just don't really see it as a big deal. She rent it to her mate.
I don't massively either.
Yeah.
I think it's a big deal, but the bottom line is you shouldn't use it, and she agreed that with the late Queen that she wouldn't use it.
Yeah.
So when they step back, they retain the titles.
You write something to your mate, you're likely to say, love Megs. You're not going to write,
no, but
love
it could be like a
HRH,
joke.
the
It
Duchess
could be
of
like,
Sussex.
I'm just not bothered by it.
I'm not
I mean,
bothered
if
by
she
it.
was like putting it on her Instagram handle all across her jams or what have you, then maybe.
And I think this is what her
problem.
You know, those you speak to from their side, sources around them would say
Jam
they retain the
sauce or
titles,
sauces?
but by agreement they said they would not use them for commercial purposes. You read the Buckingham Palace statement from the time, and that said they will not use the titles. So, you know,
I think it's like much ado about nothing.
but there has been
Not if you're the Daily Mail.
Yes.
It's a big ado about nothing.
Yeah, but also a lot of people click on a lot of Meghan stories on that particular website.
Yeah, and actually she says in the podcast that she reads nothing. She's got very strict boundaries
She has
now.
to protect her own mental health.
She's like,
I mean,
she says
if you were
she
Meghan,
reads-
you could not read.
No.
She says she
But
reads about
anyway, you're
1%.
digressing away from the challenge, Chris. You have to use the phrase full body
chills, right.
in a News at 10.
News at 10.
I've gone for the big boy. I've gone straight
No,
for
why
Tom
don't we just do it
Bradby.
in your evening?
No, because you know I'd find that really funny. And that'd be too easy. I've gone straight for the big guns.
Can it be in a rehearsal of News at 10?
In News at 10 in the next 7 days, you have to use the phrase full body chills. Okay. So, but if you're going to be clever, you could do it full body, end of a sentence, full body, full stop, start a new sentence with chills.
We'll let you know how we get on.
Well, we'll play it next week.
Yeah, cool.
And if you don't manage it, you get a forfeit. Right, that's it for now. Thank you, of course, to you guys.
No, thank you.
Deigning us with
we
your
never had
presence.
these challenges before you came along.
But thank you, of course, to you for listening. Remember, if you want to get in touch, you can email us on talkingroyals@itv.com. If you're enjoying the show, please do subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can watch Talking Royals on YouTube and on ITVX. But for now, from all of us here, bye-bye.